Hi everyone! On this video, I'm going to explain how you can teach English by using your iPhone or even your iPad. So, this is the first application I'm going to talk about that's called Edmodo. So you can download this application from Apple Store. So that's very useful to control classes, to communicate with your students, to grade, to score your students, and also to control your classes, groups you have created on edmodo.com. So you can use this website called edmodo.com and even the application, which is very interesting. So I post messages to my students by using the application, and also I send them some documents I use by using my library on Edmodo application. So you can participate in conversations in some posts from communities, from other teachers on Edmodo. So I use this application every day to talk to my students on the internet. Now I'm going to explain a little bit more about the gradebook. On the left you can see some groups I have graded, such as Advanced English Course, Big City Small World, Brazilian Portuguese, etc. So every time you click on these groups, you can see the gradebook from your students, and also you can give them a score for each task you have posted on Edmodo. So you have to create previously all the tasks on edmodo.com, and after that you can give them a score. You can give your students a score by using the application. So that's very useful to control everything by using your mobile. And on the right you can see the pictures of my students and their grades as well. If you want to visit my profile, that's edmodo.com/Eduardo. There you can find some information about myself, the groups I participate on Edmodo, and also my connections. So the teachers that are connected to me, and we share some knowledge, we exchange ideas, we exchange materials on Edmodo. So that's very useful for teachers to participate, to have an account on Edmodo. So I do it every day. I enter this website every day, and I try to get some information to improve my classes. Now I'm going to explain how to print screen on iPhone. So that's very simple. You have just to hold down the home key and press the off key. You will hear a camera snap and the iPhone will take its own picture. As you can see on the screen, you have two red arrows. The first one is home key and the second one is the off key. When you push these buttons, you can take its own picture. You can take a picture from your iPhone. So that's very useful if you want to make a presentation just like that, a video like that, and send pictures from your applications to students, to other teachers all over the world. And that's what I do with my blog. I have a blog I created by using my iPhone. So that's called grammarpower.wordpress.com. So Creative is another interesting application I use when I teach online classes, when I want to receive some responses from quizzes. On the screen you can see you have multiple choice exercises, true or false, short answers, etc. So you can make some exercises by using the So Creative website or even your mobile if you want, and send the students a link for them to give the answers for the exercises. And also, as you can see on the screen, you have my room number, and the students have to enter the room number, and then they can see the exercises available to be done. After that, the teacher will receive all the answers real time, and also a notification by email. So that's very interesting. I'm going to show a little bit more about this application on the next slide. On the screen, you can see the teacher's account and the student's link. If your students don't have an iPhone or iPad, there is no problem. So you can send them that link, am.socreative.com, and also you cannot forget to give them the rule number you have created previously on Socreative website. And so they can also take the exercises at the same time on the website, and also if they have an iPhone or iPad, they can download for free the Socreative for Students. You have two applications, the teacher's application and the student's application. So they can use the student's application to take the quizzes real time, and that's the same thing for the website, so you can do that on iPhone or iPad. As I told you before, every time a student finishes an exercise, a quiz on Socreative application, the teacher receives a report by email. As you can see on the screen, that's a report I received on my Gmail account. So you can see the file where you're going to find all the exercises, all the answers, the correct answers, the name of the student and their score. So that's very interesting. That's a very nice application for you to ask your students to take quizzes on the internet and control that real time. That's an example of the report on Excel. As you can see on the screen, you have the student's name, some questions from the quiz, the number of correct answers, and the total score of that student. So you can see the list of students from your Excel file, and you can keep that to manage their scores and everything. So that's very useful. Now let's talk about the Facebook application. So I use this application just to communicate with my students, to post my classes, to schedule classes, and also to participate in some communities, just like the Global English Forum. There you can see the members, you can exchange ideas, you can participate in some forums, you can post messages, etc. And also can control everything that you have on Facebook website, you have there on Facebook application. So I use that every day just to see the message, just to send messages to my students, etc. So if you want to see more details on what I have done on Facebook, you can access facebook.com/Eduardo G. Martins. English Idioms is one of the best applications I have on iPhone. I use that to teach the meaning of each idiom. You have on the right the picture of that idiom I want to teach, and on the left you have a list of idioms by letters, for example A, B, C, D, etc. So I think that's very interesting because you have the history, the explanation of the idiom. You can also print screen and send the pictures to your students to describe the picture and to ask them what they can see on the picture. So that's very useful. That's a very nice tool. Conversation English is another interesting application I use to teach English. You have on this application about 20 lessons. For each lesson you have a list of exercises and idioms. You can also listen to the dialogues. You can practice your listening skills, and for each idiom you can listen to the idioms and take some exercises. So I really enjoy this application because I can also learn some idioms and teach my students how to use the idioms and they can see the examples and the definitions for each expression. So I like that very much. I use Dropbox application just to share the files I have on my computer. As you can see on the screen on the left, you have the folders, and for each folder I keep the files, and I can click on the files and share the link of the files with my students. So that's a very useful application for you to send out all the files you have if you want to send any interesting file, any useful file to teach English or any other language. I use this application called Grammar App just to teach some grammar topics in English. On this application you can learn first all the topics, and after that you can take some exercises and some games, and you can also see your progress, your score, etc. So you can compare your score to other exercises, etc. So that's a free application from Apple Store. I use that to print screen. As I told you before, I print screen and I share that on my blog. So I do that every day just to teach some English. I use this application just to teach some vocabulary. That's the International English Language Testing System. As you can see on the right, you can take an exercise called fill in the blank, and also you can take the listening exercise. So I think that's one of the best applications I have on mobile. I personally use this application to study some vocabulary for this International English Language Testing, and I think that's a paid application. I paid about $1 for this application from the Apple Store, but I do recommend you to use this application to teach some vocabulary. Now I have the application called TOEFL. That's the test of English as a foreign language. As you can see on the right, you have 3 levels, level 1, 2, and 3. For each level, you can study the vocabulary for this examination. And I think that's very useful if you want to practice some vocabulary, if you want to study that for TOEFL examination. That's another application I use to teach some vocabulary. In this case, test of English for international communication. So that's the same thing from the other applications I told you before. For example, TOEFL. You have the 3 levels, and also have the filling the blank exercises and the listening exercise for each word. I use this application called VR Plus just to make my podcast. On the left, you have the list of audios I have produced. For example, giving your personal information, introducing yourself, etc. And on the right, you can share your audio on Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, or on blog. And you can also send your audio by email or upload to VR Plus website. So if you want to see how I make my blog, how I use the audio I produce on VR Plus, please just check this link. I use WordPress application just to make my blog. As you can see on the left, you have a list of posts. For example, you have checkout, you have yet, and many others. So on the right, you have the list of categories, for example, grammar, idioms, expressions, IELTS, phrasal verbs, prepositions, etc. So I use my iPhone just to print screen from the application I'm using, and I post the pictures on my blog by using WordPress. If you want to see how I make my blog by using my iPhone, please visit grammarpower.wordpress.com. I use Twitter application just to post things I have created on my blog, on Facebook, on my podcast. So you can see, if you follow me on Twitter, you can see all the things I have made to teach some English. So I think the Twitter application is one of the best for you to teach and share your things with your students. If you want to see how I use Twitter application to teach some English, please go to twitter.com/onlineenglish. Cloud Talk application is amazing. I use that just to teach some English. For example, I created on Cloud Talk a group called Online English Classes, and there you can find a post where I ask some simple questions in English. For example, what's your name? Where are you from? How old are you? So the students can use the keyboard to answer or their voice to give the answer for each question. Share Talk application is the same as Dropbox. I use the same way. As you can see on the left, you have some folders, and inside the folders I keep my files to share with my students. So that's a very useful tool to share files and to share some exercises you have made to study some English or many other languages. You can access this link, englishclasses.farshared.com. There you're going to find all the materials I use to teach some English and some video classes as well. I use Audible application just to make my podcast. As you can see on the screen, you have a button where you click on to record your voice, and on the right you can see the list of podcasts I have created. I think Audible is much better than VR Plus and much faster if you want to make a podcast. If you want to know how I make my podcast by using my iPhone, please visit audible.fm/teachereduardo. Friend Poll is a very nice application. I use that to ask some questions to my students, and also you can share the same questions with your contact list on iPhone and even on Facebook and Twitter. So that's a very useful tool if you want to ask questions and if you want to receive answers from exercises. So finally, I'm going to talk about Notes. You already have this application on iPhone when you buy it. So I use that to type in some exercises. For example, you have on the left the difference between accept and accept. I put the definition and I give some examples. And on the right, you have the list of notes I have created to post on my podcast and on my blog. So I really enjoy using Notes just to make some exercises.